land back, everybody. Land back. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, because we have comrades all the way the West Coast, waking up sunrise now over there, the California heads, and we got people all the way in Kenya who is almost done with their day. So we got people all over the world. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. All right, but not good night because everyone is up and watching the Revolutionary Book Chat. All right, so welcome everybody. Make sure that you are liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. But make sure that you are, for sure, number one thing is sharing. Okay, make sure you are going into our Facebook, our Black Hammer page on Facebook, or on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Black Hammer TV, and that you are sharing this live right now with everybody that you know. And once you shared it, make sure you do hashtag shared in the comments so that we know that you did. But yes, welcome everybody. What is the Revolutionary Book Chat, G, for people who don't know?
Yeah, land back everyone. The Revolutionary Book Trap is our weekly study of political education where we break down all of the education that we need to know for anti-colonial revolution. And we break it down in our terms, right? Not like the petty rule, like the white leftists, right, that are just academic. Like we break it down for ourselves, right? Because we know that the poor working class is the leading are the leaders of the revolution. So welcome
Yes,
everyone.
exactly, right? We do it in a way that is to, take these things that have already always been talked about, but then talk about them in a way that applies more to what's going on because at Black Hammer, we're doing the things that these books are talking about. And if we're not doing them yet, we are building ourselves up to the point where we can get them. All right. Land back to Ray. Welcome. Thank you for sharing. Land back, Chief Ire. We
And back,
see you
Chief.
here. 5 p.m. over there. See, look at it. It's already the end of the day. Time is wild. The earth is wild for me because it's just crazy to think that a place where the sun is rising, that it's setting somewhere else. It's a beautiful thing. Land back. I think Charles. Land back, Charles. And thank you for sharing, Chief Ide. Yes, again, hashtag shared when you shared it. Okay, everybody. We want to make sure that everyone is seeing what is going on with the art of war. We got love from Atlanta from Comrade Dilf. Okay. Comrade. So many of us could use a Dilf right now, huh? But what we can use even more is political education, right? What we can use even more is political education and work. Land back, community, welcome. Land back, everybody. So if you haven't heard already who we is, if you haven't watched the last episode, I'm Chief Oju. I represent the nations of Africa and Bodiken. Got some working class origins, but some petty blue contradictions now, for sure. Uh, use he, him pronouns. And yes, I'm the chief of agitation propaganda at Black Hammer. And this is.
I'm back. I'm Chief G, representing the indigenous people of Mexico, representing the working class with a lot of true aspirations, so still committing class suicide every day. Pronouns they, them, and I'm the chief of IT.
Yes. Land back. And land back, QAnon Smash Y Power. Welcome. Yes, and we are reading The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's a classic. It's a classic book. A lot of people have been reading this book. It doesn't matter whether or not they trying to have a revolution or not. This book, for so many people, whether it is colonizers or colonized people, have been looking to this book for a long time, just because a lot of people want to fight back, right? People want to fight back against the things that have been done to them, whether those things have been put onto them by the European nation, or they're just trying to, fight the school bully. People go into the art of war to try to find ways to strategize against their enemies. And so this book is a seminal text for everybody around the world, but especially for colonized people who use this book to understand how to defeat the colonizers that have come and invaded their land. Because a lot of times we can see our enemy and think our enemy so big, our enemy so much smarter, our enemy so much more powerful, But what Sun Tzu lays out is that it's possible to defeat an enemy of any size, and especially even an enemy that is bigger than you, if you are strategic about who you are, how you practice, and how you organize others. And that's really the crux of what we've been learning. And so, if you haven't been catching up with us, we are reading chapters 5 through 8, or sections 5 through 8 of the book of the Art of War. And if you don't have the book, you can get the book at our library, which is at blackhammer.org/library. We got everything that you need, not just the Art of War, but lots of other books as well. All right. But of course, before we get into the book, what is something that everyone needs to be doing, Chief G?
Y'all need to be donating because like we've said in the past, right? Like we do so many things here at Black Hammer to fight back, right? And doing organizing and also overturning the contradictions of our people that are preventing them from fighting back at this point. We need resources, right? Like to serve the homeless, to host events where we can all read political education like in real time, where we can all have something to eat, right? We need to be donating because it's only with the help of each other, right, that we're gonna be able to fight back, right? Because it's gonna take time,
Yes,
but we're doing it.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's going to take time and it's going to take resources, but we are doing it. And that's one of the biggest parts of it is, are you just doing it? And so if there's something that you're not doing today and try to figure out what to do today, the thing you can do is donate. All right. So you can at least give some resources, either resources back as reparations. So if you colonizer watching, you can give those resources back and give the people the ability to liberate themselves. Or if not, you can just donate and make sure that we can all get what we need in order to do what we need. All right. As Kalubi says here, organizing takes moolah. I was gonna say mullah, but I was like, like I was like, how did Brianna spell it? I don't know, but we need that moolah la. All right. You better have my money. No. All right. So yeah, make sure you're donating, and you can donate to Cash App Black Hammer Org in order to do that. All right. So we'll be dropping the Cash App throughout the show. Don't worry, we'll make sure we get them donations. But yes, donate to Cash App Black Hammer Org. And so yeah, so we've been reading The Art of War. And so if you have been reading The Art of War, make sure you drop your read that backs. So a read that back is a quote from the book or a line from the book, which is very easy in The Art of War because it's literally a book of lines. You don't got to search for the middle of a paragraph. It's a book of lines. You can find a line that speaks out to you, that you unite with, that you got a question about, and you drop that into the comments on YouTube or Facebook. Hashtag read that back, so that we know to read that back and that we can talk about it. And G and I can lay it out for you and see how we see it in the terms of the work that we do at Black Hammer. All right,
because we studying together, right? It's not just what we need to say, right? But it's also every hammer, everyone watching, right? Y'all also need to share your political education with the world, with the masses. This life is gonna stay up. So anything that you think is valuable is probably valuable.
Yes. And also, if you hear some chopping or some cooking sounds, that's because we have comrades getting food together for the homeless people that we are reaching out to every week and almost every day here in Chicago. So if you hear that, that's what's going on. And yes, get the full sense of what revolutionary work is: political education and labor, right? It's all that for our people, all those things for our people. So yes, we're gonna get into it again. Make sure you drop your read that back into the comments. You can put it in now, and we'll talk about it later. If you have a line from sections 5 through 8, put that in. But we are going to get into our own read that backs, and I believe mine's might be first. Not because I like to finish first or start first. Oh God, I'm a mess. I'm a mess sometimes. All right. So this is from the chapter, the section 5, the first section that we read for today. And Sun Tzu says, There are not more than five musical notes, yet the combinations of these five give rise to more melodies that can ever be heard. There are not more than five primary colors, yet in combination they produce more hues that can ever be seen. There are not more than five cardinal tastes, yet combinations of them yield more flavors that can never be tasted. In battle, there are not more than two methods of attack, the direct and the indirect, yet these two in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. The direct and the indirect lead onto each other in turn. It is like moving in a circle. You never come to an end. Who can exhaust the possibilities of their combination? Laying back.
Laying
That
back.
stuff is hot. I like that.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. That almost turned me on. Um, laying back. No, for real. That's hot
Yeah.
because the endless possibilities of the ways you can organize your resources and your people to accomplish a task, and in this case, to attack or defeat your enemy, right? And so talk about like the endless there's only five primary colors. So if you think about it in a certain way, let's say you can say there's only a certain amount of colonizations. Of course, we're like 97% of the world, but there's these colonizations. We have this amount of resources. We have only this amount of offices or something at the moment, right? Things like that. You take what you have and you take what you created and you put them in a way that yields whatever results you need now. And I think another reason why the possibilities are pretty much endless and it's a circle is because the conditions in which you have um, those conditions are always also changing, right? And so you can have let's say you can have an agitprop office, you can have an MPA office, you can have a defense office, you can have all those things, and they at one point they might be doing one thing, but when the situations change and the conditions change, they're doing something else, and they're using the same apparatus and the same resources and the same skills, and reorganizing in a way that gives different results and does something new, right? Um, and then specifically when it comes to like battle, right, and warfare, that you have that direct and indirect warfare, like QC's asking here, like what can be considered indirect warfare. And so you have like the direct, going literally confronting your enemy on a battlefield, right? Um, and then and you have, and that could be done a million of ways. Like, where is it happening? Is it happening in the mountain? Is it happening in the bush? Is it happening? It can happen so many ways depending on the context. How many is it? Is it a direct battle of 500 facing 1,000? Is it a guerrilla attack of 10 on a whole encampment, right? That's like that direct warfare. But then also the indirect is the propaganda, right? Propaganda, uh, political education, as we seen in the War of the Flea, that war of ideas, that war of propaganda is the first one that has to be won, and that is a type of warfare that, right, is again meant to divide your enemy, to split up your enemy, which is what Sun Tzu talks about, right, often, right, about splitting up your enemy. And so all these combinations of how you can uh, use your resources just leads to so many possibilities. And so you can never really say, oh, we use everything we got, because you have everything. How do you just rearrange it in a way that responds to the conditions? Of course, if you need more resources, you got to get them, right? Sometimes you just do need, if there's only five colors, sometimes you got to somehow make, right, or make a six out of the five somehow. uh, but yeah, just that the endless possibilities is makes teaches us that that
Yeah.
we can't just stop when we think we don't have enough.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's a constant flow of of even just energy, right?
Yeah, like the chapter.
Yeah, like the chapter scholar, right? Like you know, even just thinking about it, like in the context of like science and nature, right? And how like everything is always changing. Energy is just changing. You never finish it, right? Like it's changing, right? It applies to a revolutionary context too, right? Like you have all these resources that are always going to be changing, and you have to adapt to them, right? There's like analogy, like an analogy about that, like later in the book that we have in one of our read that backs about like um, it's like water, right? Like
Yeah.
and water and nature, right? Like you always have to move with it and move along like um, yeah, just around your conditions, right? You have to be analytical of your conditions and then move accordingly, right? But it's really cool to like think about how all the possibilities, right? Um, and I think you know that also that also proves that our victory is inevitable in a way too, um,
Yes.
because like the fact that the society is organized in a way right now where like our resources are being stolen, right? It also implies that we can reorganize it so that it's ours, right?
Yes.
So that's what it's also really interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, and it makes me think of it. Just makes me think of power, right?
Mhm.
So, if we think of power as something that exists, that can be used in a way that makes a world where no one lives at the expense of another, then we understand that okay, it's just a thing that exists, and how do we wield it and use it and form it in a way? How do we combine it with other things to make it so that we live in a world where we aren't exploiting each other for the resources here? So, yes, exactly, right. And so being like water, if you think of these things, they become inexhaustible. It becomes inevitable, right? That victory,
Mhm.
because all we have um, are kind of these material things, these resources
Mhm.
that are just not being used and combined in a way that benefits us. It benefits the majority of the world. They're being used in a way that benefits a small minority of the world and murders the rest of us. Um, and just like Sun Tzu was talking about, like colors and taste. What a like disgusting way to use like the things that are here on this earth, right? To use the simple colors we have, the simple like taste that we have, that in combination can provide and create so many beautiful things, but then they use it to exploit, murder, genocide, pillage, and loot, right? And so that's the world we're living. That's the world we're trying to create. Is that world where we can use the things on this earth already for something that doesn't kill the majority of the planet,
Yeah.
whether that's a human life, other life, Mother Earth, the outside of the planet, because at this point they've touched everything. Uh, and so yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that I really liked about this, sort of bringing it back to more like the warfare side of it,
Yeah.
is how like indirect action and indirect action like lead to each other.
Yes.
It's you have to do both no matter what. Like you cannot just attack, like all at once and forever, right? Like you have to be like since you said in all of the book, right? You have to be strategic. You have to think and say, what do you need right now? Do you need? Is this a point where you need to, um, sort of like manipulate your enemy so that it does something that will eventually lead to you to attack it and stuff like that, right? Like, um, they're interlinked. You have to do direct and indirect attacks all the time, until you've got everything organized the way you want it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it is like a cycle, and then like for instance, Sun Tzu talks about like if you march 100 li, like the distance, like if you march like 100, then you're gonna lose a majority of your men. If you march like 50, you lose, or you keep 2/3. If you march the smallest, then you pretty much keep everybody. You have to. You can't just attack, because then you're gonna lose what you do have. You're gonna lose the resources that you have. You're gonna lose your soldiers, and like understanding how to do something indirectly can save the resources you could have for when you do something directly, right? And so totally you get at that, G. Uh, Walter Kame says science is everything, right? It is everything. Everything, not just when we're talking about the earth and we're talking about and water, right? But it's everything when it comes to understanding how to be indirect and direct and how to do it correctly. We have to be scientific about it to learn from it. Yes, and then Khalifa says break it down. uh, but uh, but yeah, like like QC was get that explanation for indirect warfare. Yeah, like demoralizing your enemy, turning the people against that enemy, and dividing that enemy. That's a form, right, of that indirect warfare, because we aren't necessarily making our enemies smaller, like completely, but we are breaking them up to make it more manageable to defeat them. Yes, land back, Otieno Gadrick, land back, welcome. Again, remember everybody, make sure you are sharing the book chat and liking, commenting, sharing, okay? And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Black Camera TV on YouTube, so that you can get notifications on when the show goes live. All right. But I think we have a couple of read that backs in here from the audience. I gotta make sure that none of these are read that backs, because not that that's an issue, but we could be just one quote for a long time. All right, so we have one here from Colibri. Right here, it says when he utilizes his fighting men. When he utilizes combined energy, his fighting men become as if it were into rolling logs or stones. For it is the nature of a log or stone to remain motionless on level ground and to move when on a slope. If four cornered, to come to a standstill, but if round shaped, to go if four cornered, to come to a standstill, but if round shaped, to go rolling down. Thus, the energy developed by good fighting men is as the momentum of a round stone rolled down a mountain thousands of feet in the height. So much on the subject of energy. Yes, right. Um, if you try to uh, do something super direct from a low height, it won't have much impact, right? If you're like, quick, go, and you send your entire force to do something immediately, you're probably gonna lose everybody. And if not lose them, you're going to uh, probably embolden the enemy into them thinking like, wow, look how easy it was to defeat this many people. We don't want to embolden our enemy either. That goes against our indirect warfare. Uh, but yeah, from a high level, roll down, uh, it gains momentum, it gains speed, it gains energy. Exactly. And so just imagine that, right?
Yeah, it's like you do those direct and indirect attacks over and over and over and over and over until like the last direct attack is boom, right? Like is the last one. So yeah, no, full unity. It's a really good real attack.
Yes, land back. I have our cat is playing with my legs because she wants food. And I'm like, I can't give you food right now because you just ate. Mm-mm. All right. So let's see. We have another read that back from Yahweh. All right. So it says, oh wait, is this one yours? No, right? No, right? Oh, this is 17 from the first chapter. Simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulatedness postulates strength. Hiding order beneath the cloak of disorder is simply a question of subdivision. Concealing courage under a show of timidity presupposes a fund of latent energy. Masking strength with weakness is to be affected by tactical dispositions. Thus, one who is skillful at keeping the enemy on the move maintains deceitful appearances, according to which the enemy will act. He sacrifices something that the enemy may snatch at it. By holding out baits, he keeps him on the march. Then, with a body of picked men, he lies in wait for him. You want
Yeah,
to start
yeah,
with that one?
yeah. This is a great example, right, of that indirect attack leading to a direct one, right? Like you deceive your enemy, you sort of like manipulate it, right, till it comes to you and you're ready for the attack, right? Um, so yeah, like indirect attack will come in very different ways, right? Like it'll through the propaganda, through spying what they're doing, right? Like it's in various ways, but at the end, like it will lead to each other, right? And then after that, after you direct attack, then you learn from it and get information so that you can start doing another indirect one and over and over and over again. Right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, no, full unity with that. And I think if if you're showing your enemy that deceit and that just like how he says earlier, if you're showing yourself to be weak when you really are strong, if you're
Mhm.
showing yourself to be the opposite of like what they expect you to be, uh, then they're going to act in a way that puts their guard down, right? And it puts them in a position of having to end up defending themselves
Mhm.
because you are because they think that all they're going to do is an offense, but when in reality they're going to be defending themselves because that us who they thought was weak is actually strong. That us who they thought was not prepared or disorganized end up being organized, and that's what we have to. That's what we have to. Not just an image we get to create, but a reality we have to create for
Mhm.
ourselves. You can't just put up the facade of that because then if they come and do attack us, that's like calling a bluff. Then oh shit, or oh no, right? and so yeah, we have to not just create that guise, but actually literally make it. Watakami says the cat is manipulating the enemy to get what she wants. Smart kitty, yes. And I mean, and I got the scars to prove it. I mean, she got the scars to prove it. Land back, city build the bee, land back. All right, let's get into our next read that back from us. I believe it's on page 31 of the PDF. Right. Number 17. Let's see. I think this is yours, G, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will everywhere be weak. Lineback. I really like this little read that back because um, with every strength comes a weakness, right? And the other way around. So, as we've talked in this episode and in the previous one, right? How you want to manipulate the enemy so that it does what you want it to do. Um, you want it to strengthen uh, what you want it to strengthen, right? So that it weakens what you want to be weak, right? Um, so yeah, just keeping that in mind, right? Like strengths and weaknesses, right? Like are always present. That you're never gonna have just strength, right? So you need to control your enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and also be aware of yours so you can protect them, right? So yeah, I think this is really straight to the point. But
Yeah, no, went back. With that, yeah, and I didn't think about it this in a way about your enemy and ourselves, right? I was thinking about specifically like ourselves, but how do you get your enemy to do that very thing to make sure that they send all their resources one direction and that the other direction becomes weak, and
Mhm.
it's easy with certain segments of the enemy. It's kind of easy. It's easy. It's easy with leftists. It's easy. um, it's it's easy. Yeah, it's easy with certain segments of the enemy to send the resources and send the energy one way, and leave the other space open, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's especially important, when we're on the ground too. Like how are we moving in a way that makes us able to address everything from every direction,
Mhm.
right? And it's more than just keeping your head on the swivel, but to almost be like a collective head on a swivel,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
Like not just to be like a single person, like okay, what's going on, but how do you get everybody to do that and be kind
Mhm.
of moving at one time, and
Mhm.
that does take like serious leadership. That takes serious leadership. That
Mhm.
takes serious organization
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
that.
And the other thing that I just thought about from this read that back is how at the end it says if the enemy is spread out everywhere, then it will be weak everywhere, right? So again, Sun Tzu is reinforcing that idea of like dividing your enemy to the point
Yeah.
where like it's manageable, so manageable that it's so easy to to win, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you have to do that, and it also teaches us to that unity is the most important thing, right? Like that for ourselves, right? We want to have such a strong unity that we cannot ever be um, spread out so much that we're weak everywhere, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because you can have a group, but then weakening that unity makes it so that even if they are spread out geographically,
Mm-hmm.
that geographic spreading, that physical spreading,
Mm-hmm.
becomes weak, and so that distance then becomes a weak point, right? Like for, I mean, if you think about like other revolutionary organizations in the past, they're always spread out across a bunch of land, right? But then when they've concentrated in bases and were able to consolidate more power and consolidate more unity, then those bases were able to connect. I think about like the Long March with Mao, and how they they had places, their destinations were predetermined because they had they knew who had unity with them, and so when they went to those cities where they knew another camp was, and they can meet with other segments of the Red Army, that they knew that they were safe. uh, but then when there was disunity in that, in some of the people and some of the groups of the Red Army like coming together, that that disunity uh, weakened the entire collective and ended up making, you know, thousands of lives lost.
Mm-hmm.
Less so in Mao's section because of his leadership and his strategy and his organization, but more so in the ones that had weaker unity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the ones led by the colonizer who pretended to be Chinese. What's his name? Otto Braun. I forgot his name. But yeah, that segment, right? So yeah, it's very clear like that consolidated unity, like you're saying, G, is it strengthens us, right? It strengthens us. Land back, yeah. Make sure you're still dropping your read that backs up into the comments. I don't. I think I believe I see another one, but yeah, make sure you are dropping your read that backs into the comments. We got one from Tiger right here. Oh yes, I have this one down. This you didn't mark this one, right?
I mean, I had it done, but it wasn't like I wasn't gonna.
Okay, yeah, it's a
But
good
it's
one.
a good one.
We both marked it because it's a good one. Sun Tzu said, "Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten the battle will arrive exhausted. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord, or by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near." Bam bag. This one hit hard. I'm not gonna lie. This one hit hard. Because I think it's in practice, like doing actually doing the work, it makes this lesson this like this really blunt and clear, that you know being first in the field leads you to have the energy to take care of any contradictions that might come your way,
Yep.
right? In that situation. Whereas coming in second in the field, you already have something, you already have some contradiction that brought you there later on, but then you have exhausted like your resources or your ability or your energy to address anything that might come afterwards,
Yeah.
right? And so and what's a better situation to be in? It is blunt, it is clear. You to have more energy to handle what's going on, and therefore the I think that also makes the wins feel more like wins, and because in that situation, because even if you do make it through, if you're second in the field and you are exhausted and you still achieve what you got to achieve because you just the bad A that you are, uh, it still makes those wins feel less, even if it's the exact same result.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get steeped in the contradictions still because
Yeah.
because there's double those because you came later.
Exactly.
that one hit hard for me when I first read it.
Yeah, and I think it's also true in defending and retreating, right? Like you also want to be the first one doing that so you can like do it well. And it also just it also it's another example of like planning really is everything. Like the more time you have to analyze the situation and the more time you have to plan for those contradictions, right, the more likely you're going to succeed in not having those problems, right? So I know it's a really good read about.
Yes, no, for real. And again, that's what we want to do is we want to exceed, and succeeding like that what Sun Tzu says in that read that back, is imposing our will on the enemy. And so in a situation where you're prepared, you can do whatever you want. It's your call, it's your game, it's like it's your world. Do what you want to, right? It's you, and that's power.
Exactly.
So if you want power, you gotta step it up to get that power. And stepping it up means like being there first on the field, and then trying and overturning as many contradictions as possible, and to avoid to encounter as few contradictions as possible. And of course, it's not to avoid it. Like now talks about, you don't want to avoid contradictions. If there aren't contradictions, then everything must be fine already, and that we must have won, and everything's great. But we don't want contradictions that impede our ability to serve people and to actually carry out the task that we have at hand.
And it's also about being, it's also about organizing your resources, like we were talking at the beginning, right? So that you can handle any contradiction, right? I think there's another part of the book where Sun Tzu says that that he will be victorious is the one who's ready to receive or be ready for the enemy to attack or something like that. And it's that, right? Like being organized and knowing exactly what resources to put where so that the contradictions can be handled, because they're going to happen. So unity.
No, yes, linebacker unity with that. We have another read that back from the audience up in here.
We can read that one.
Yeah.
We can form a single united body, while the enemy must split up into fractions. Hence, there will be a whole pitted against separate parts of the whole, which means that we shall be many to the enemy's few. I'm back. Yeah, no, full unity, and it's like we've been laying out, right. The enemy will be weaker if it's spread out everywhere, right? It will be weak everywhere, because if we are united, right, we can attack more fiercely and quickly, and also being united also means that you can organize your resources well, because like if you're just like so split up and disorganized and weak everywhere, then there's you're doomed, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I have the metaphor that came to my mind is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I don't know why, but exactly. I was thinking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You have the Zords, right? And you have the Triceratops. You have the Kimberly's pterodactyl, and on their own, those things would get their behinds whooped, and be like, oh no. And every time they went into it thinking that it was going to work, but every time it didn't. And then what did they do to defeat every single enemy? Was they combined and made, oh my God, let's call it Megatron. It's not Megatron. But they combined, right? And in order to defeat their enemy. And it was that unity. But you see how weak they were is to separate Zords, right? And so let's think about our enemy that way. Of course, we can be the Power Rangers, but I don't want to be the Power Rangers. I want to be a hammer instead.
Exactly.
So if we think of the Power Rangers as our enemy, then let's keep them in their Zords. Let's keep them in their dinosaur parts. They don't do much otherwise. Otherwise, they're just a bulldozer with Triceratops horns. I think that's right. I think the black was right.
That's pretty much what it was.
Like the Black Ranger. I think it's the Black Ranger. The Triceratops. It literally just like a bulldozer with horns. That's all it was, and it couldn't do crap. But then of course, then I think it became one of the legs. I forgot which body part it became. But all of them together, look what they did. And so yeah, let's make sure that they stay in their individual parts and don't come together, because when they come together, then we have just another episode of them winning, and we don't want any more episodes of them winning. All right.
Drag the Power
Try to-
Rangers.
yeah, no, yeah, we know. Yeah, split our enemy up like them Zords. All right. Land back, land back. I think we could go to our next read that back, which I believe is one that we shared. We picked the exact same
Oh
set.
yeah,
Oh, it's the water one, but we could get deep in it. Talk
yeah.
about more. All right, you could go ahead.
Okay. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven born captain. The five elements are not always equally predominant. The four seasons may make way for each other in turn. There are short days and long. The moon has its periods of warning and of waning and waxing. Lambeck. Yeah, no, like we said, right? As revolutionaries, we have to adapt to our conditions, and it's something that colonist people are doing for forever, right? But it's especially important here that you're able to move with your conditions, and not only like the material conditions, but also like where your enemy is at, right? Like you have to you can't just have some sort of a just an idea that um, if you do if you just attack, then you'll win. If you just attack all of them, then you win, right? You have to be strategic about things. And you know I really like, again, that analogy of water, right? Because
Yeah,
energy, is always changing, and you have to always adapt, right?
yeah.
um so yeah, no, what you thinking?
Yeah, no, yeah. That metaphor for me, that's why it stuck out to me, is that, yeah, being aware that your conditions are always changing. We always are under colonialism,
Yep.
right? So colonialism is the overall contradiction, but
Mhm.
the conditions under which certain nations are under colonialism, or the conditions under which certain cities, certain individuals, like the conditions are constantly changing and are different
Mhm.
in many places. And so, the way that we uh, organize our forces in one place might not look exactly the same as it
Mhm.
does in another place,
Mhm.
but since the contradiction is the
The same.
same, then then we can organize on the same basis, which is why
Mhm.
we can organize on the same principles of unity and
Mhm.
organize on the same line of making sure that we're organizing the people who go through the most under colonialism, right? Our
Mhm.
homeless people. Uh, that's why that can be the same everywhere. But of course, the conditions to which and under which everyone is at in those certain situations or circumstances,
Mhm.
it means that we have to uh, be like water. Like, what's water do? It fits the shape of its container,
Right.
right? And so the container that you're offered and where you're at is the conditions you got, and so
Yep.
you have to fit the shape of that, uh, and fit the shape of it and fill it up, right?
Exactly.
So that you're adjusting as much as possible, because you can have your conditions, and you can have the ability to be malleable and to be flexible,
Mhm.
but how far can you reach with your flexibility,
Mhm.
right? Maybe you can bend your arm backwards in a way to to grab your knee or something from the back. I don't know, but you might be able to have that stretch. But then what? But look, if you can't reach it, then what's the point?
Yeah, and it's also important to know, right, that yeah, water, will ship itself to its container, but also, under colonialism, that container is always going to be changing, right?
Yep.
It's always going to be moving. You're always going to be, you always have to know what that container is, right? You always have to know what the material conditions are so that you can change. Because if you feel like you're good and that that you're like, you don't have to change anything, then you're probably doing something wrong, right? Like Sun Tzu says, conditions are never the same,
Yeah.
never the same. And yeah, and like you have to be ready to change, right? You have to be ready to address a contradiction, a problem all of the time. Because you need to plan ahead for things. You need to analyze and know what's coming, but also um, be ready to face something that you are not going to know about, right?
Yeah.
Be ready to face pretty much anything, and the way that you face anything is by sticking to like dialectical materialism, by sticking to science, right? By sticking to a scientific outlook of just like not making an assumption and always analyzing, like things you said over and over again. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want to you don't want to uh you don't want to get stuck thinking that the situation that you have in front of you, even if you're adjusting it well, is always going to be the situation, because not only will the conditions change just because of colonialism, but your enemy can influence and change those conditions too. Once they see you winning, once they see you succeeding, they in this whole time we're talking about warfare, the enemy's also doing warfare. It's not like the enemy's just waiting and just like divide me, like defeat me. That's not what's happened. If that was the case, then we would win. But they are doing warfare too, so being aware that our conditions are changing, not just because colonialism is just doing its thing, but because people are purposefully like gonna mess it up, in order to change and influence those conditions, in order to really make us move in ways, right? And that's why it's all about imposing our will, right? Like, how do we create a situation where we impose our will onto the battlefield, onto the war, so that we're the always ones uh, making all the maneuvers, even when the enemy thinks it's making maneuvers out of its own will. Like Teresa's here again, a very good chess analogy, very dialectical game, right? It is, right? Like it's all, how are you moving yourself to move your enemy?
Exactly.
Woo!
That's a good quote.
Damn. Oh, that hit. Woo! Okay, right. I mean, Sun Tzu already said it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like I just like came up with something, but it's when you say it in a way that helps you click in your head.
Exactly.
Right? I hope that helped it click in your head for some people. So land back, everybody. So yeah, let's. I think we have. Make sure you keep dropping your read that backs. You still have time for your audience read that back. So if there's a quote that you like, that you want to talk about, make sure you put it into the comments. But we didn't do the trivia today. I knew I missed something. And the next read that back has to do with the trivia. So actually, we're gonna do it real quick, so you can inform what this next read that back is gonna be about. All right. So the trivia was Sun Tzu says to
not attack when the enemy is most keen. What time of the day is that? A, morning. B, afternoon. C, night. D, sunrise.
Right. So keen, if you read the book but you didn't know what that means, keen is like most aware, like most prepared, ready. So Sun Tzu says not to not attack when the enemy is most keen. So what time of day is that? Put in the comments right now what your answer is. Is it A, morning, B, afternoon, C, night, or D, sunrise? This will answer the what's it called? This will inform the next read that back. So we got QC says A, Teray says A, Tom says the book chapter is the highlight of my week. Oh my goodness, thank you, Tom. Land back, put your answers in, and we're gonna see, but we gotta get to our read that back. So, we got A from a Moxley.
Y'all copying?
Yeah, are y'all copying? I hope y'all ain't copying. I think y'all read it because our war is quicking up. A for awesome. Colibri says B, the afternoon. All right. Let's see the answer. The answer is A. I just realized I put the right answer in the answer. The answer is A, y'all. To not attack in the morning, all right? Or no, to not attack in the morning, all right? Because we don't want to we don't like not we, but like Susie talks about says not attacking like a camp when everyone's bright and early got full of energy, right? You like you want to be there at night when they are essentially tired and turning in for the day. Because at night, they're most likely going to have their guard down, which is a reason why if you see anti-colonial movements, right? You see anti-colonial movements, they are all they are all doing guerrilla warfare at night, right? They're attacking camps at night, and those are some of the most successful stories of anti-colonial movements, especially throughout Africa. I mean, throughout Asia, throughout the colonized world. And so the read it back. This read that back gets to that, right? So it says, "Now a soldier's spirit is keenest in the morning. By noonday, it has begun to flag, and in the evening, his mind is bent only on returning to camp. A clever general, therefore, avoids an army when its spirit is keen, but attacks it when it's sluggish and inclined to return. This is the art of studying moods, discipline and calm, to await the appearance of disorder and hubbub amongst the enemy. This is the art of retaining self possession, to be near the goal while the enemy is still far from it, to wait at ease while the enemy is toiling and struggling, to be well fed while the enemy is famished. This is the art of husbanding one's own strength." All right. Yeah, land back. Yeah. So it's just it's not just literally a matter of physical tiredness, right? But it's also about attacking when the enemy's spirit is also waning, when the enemy's spirit is also declining. And in this time of colonialism, the enemy spirit is declining.
Not going well for them.
No, it's not. Everyone doesn't know what to do. They're running around like chickens with their head cut off. The enemy's spirit is declining, right? And so we have to do this is what the Panthers would say: seize the time, right? You have to seize the time in which your enemy is not at their most keen, okay? And so that time is now. Maybe it wasn't 15 years ago, right? Maybe it wasn't 5 years ago. Maybe it was 5 years ago. But definitely now during a pandemic with Sleepy Joe in office and everyone quitting their jobs and losing their jobs and just mass worldwide hysteria and crisis, because that's the time when if our enemy can't give up their spirits in this time, then it's the time, right? It's the time for us.
Yeah, and this is another example of like adapting to what your enemy's doing, right? Like the previous read back was saying, because I mean, yeah, like you may want to also go to sleep at night, but you have to know that your enemy's gonna be tired, so you're gonna have to switch around, right? Readjust your resources, right? Like we've been saying, you have to be analytical of where your enemy's at, where your situation's at, and adapt to that.
Yes.
Not just like stick to your own individual preference and stuff like that, right? You have to know that when the time is right, time's gonna be right, and you have to take advantage of that. You have to use that opportunity.
You have to use the opportunity, and losing the opportunity, it can mean waiting a really long time for the crisis to deepen again, so that it does, right? So I mean, the last time that there was a crisis in colonialism in the core of imperialism here in the United States was during the 1960s, which is why the Black Panther Party came to be at that time, because there was a crisis. There was a crisis of Vietnam, of imperialism around the world, of all these in the 50s and 60s, all these colonized people rising up, and of course there were victories here and there, but then they largely got it under control because of the nature of those movements. They were very much centered on those specific colonized nations. There wasn't necessarily a unity of all colonized nations fighting against a single enemy. There was, whether that was around the world or within the United States, right? And so because that crisis quote unquote ended, um, they had to wait. The for the most part, colonialism was chilling in the 70s and 80s and 90s because they had their methods of making sure revolutionaries were in prison or dead. They had a way to make sure that the people were numb and not paying attention to what was going on in the world. And so that's those crises we have to seize that time. And the Sun Tzu knows that, right? Sun Tzu knows that. Yes, laying back. All right. Make sure if we have any final audience read that back, so make sure you drop them in the comments. But we do have one more read that back from us to do. But yeah, make sure you drop into the chat into the comments on YouTube or Facebook if you have a line from the Art of War. And again, if you need to find the book, it's on our library at blackhammer.org/library. All right, y'all. But we have one more read back from G, so we can do that.
Yep. The art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him. Not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but
yeah, unassailable. Yes.
Yeah, Lambeck. But you want me to go through?
I mean, those are that. I highlighted this part. I mean,
Okay.
we could go through. I highlighted this other part because I highlighted a lot. There are 5 dangerous faults which may affect the general: recklessness, which leads to destruction; cowardice, which leads to capture; a hasty temper, which could be provoked by insults; a delicacy of honor, which is sensitive to shame; over solicitude for his men, which exposes them to worry and trouble. These are 5 besetting sins of a general, ruinous to the conduct of war. All right. And so, yeah, go ahead. I had something to say, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, no, on that first part, right? I think that like we said, yet again, Sun Tzu, is really good at connecting all of his thoughts together too. But we have to, be organized to the point where we can be ready to receive the enemy at any point. That's what we're building, right? Being organized to be ready to receive the enemy, and also leading the enemy to to move in a way that will be even more ready to receive it, right? Like it's all linked together, right? Um, and and also, we cannot rely on we cannot just assume that the enemy's not attacking, we're good, right? We have to know that we have to protect ourselves, and that we've organized, that we have to know for sure that we've organized so much that we are that we're protected, right? That we're defended. So I mean, to me, it all comes back to organizing those resources, right? To analyzing your conditions, to always adjust and adapt, right? It all comes back to those simple like principles, right?
Yeah.
So that you can be prepared. That's really all what war is about, right? To be being prepared to either attack or defend or run away, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It really comes down to that.
Mm-hmm. And like that, and that's why for me, like I had that one of the ones below, because what makes you prepared for that? Like what makes you unassailable? What makes you like a fortress as yourself as like a leader, leading people to other people to become unassailable, right? And those like separate things, like making sure that you are avoiding recklessness, cowardice. I have to look at the list again. A hasty temper, a delicacy of honor, and over solicitude, because those things can make it so that you have a vulnerability that the enemy can exploit, right? And so, and that exploitation can lead to lots of results, right? So, like the recklessness, the exploitation can lead to everyone being killed, right? Like reckless, that's aventurism, right? That's why we say no to aventurism, because that recklessness can lead to destruction. Cowardice then leads you to the enemy just like being able to impose their will on you, right? and that's the complete opposite of what Sun Tzu says. If the enemy is able to impose their will on you, and physically, mentally, right, then we've lost that, right?
It's about being objective, really, right? It's about, because when those 5 dangerous faults, right, to me, just it's just an example of a general being caught up in his own feelings and in his own assumptions or what he wants to do instead of looking at objectively what's happening in front of him
Yeah.
and moving the resources accordingly, right?
Yeah.
It's all about being objective, analyzing, right? And not just letting feelings that make your decisions for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that you learn through doing the work. That's something you
Exactly.
learn. It's not something. It's of course things that people can have on their own, right? And it's a lot of it's a lot of things that people already have,
Mhm.
right? Because of the life and the lives that we live under colonialism, right? Especially the people who are the most poor class of our people. But it's also something that we have to develop through leading and through
Mhm.
doing the work too.
Exactly.
Right? And land back, Shalot, they agree that this is a read it back. So.
Line back.
But yes, yeah, no, I think in the end, Sun Tzu really lays out what you have to do to really create momentum, create momentum against your enemy, and how much you just have to uh, be the one imposing your will and calling the shots, and that's what power is.
Yeah.
And so Sun Tzu's really just laying out how to get the power.
Yeah.
Right. It's the art of war, but what's war used for if not for getting power, right? Or defending power.
Yeah.
But if you don't got the power, if you don't got the power to defend, then war is for getting power. Lay it back. So yeah, so make sure you still are liking, commenting, subscribing, and make sure that you are still donating. Again, you could donate to our Cash App Black Camera Org. I saw Colibri was gonna donate $5 because I got that wrong answer. So, but yeah, everyone, yeah, you could donate to Black Camera Org on Cash App to help us get the resources that we need in order to continue serving our homeless people, in order to continue housing, feeding people, everything that we do at Black Camera, right? But it just in the meantime, we're gonna get into announcements. So, our first announcement. What is our first announcement? G. We are going to check. Yes. What's our first announcement?
The Revolutionary Church. It happens every single week. Atlanta out and politically educated people gets out the resources that they need. And you can watch it. If you cannot go in Atlanta, if you're not there, you can watch it on our YouTube channel, Black Hammer TV. It I always love like CIC's speeches, right? Like
Yes.
they always like lay it all out in the most empowering terms, I think, right? Like it's always really empowering.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure to watch it on youtube.com/blackhammertv.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you can also see all the past ones up on there too. So if you missed one, they are all there as well. And then we also are again telling everyone to drop the charges on our Atlanta Hammers now and forever. We don't need them at all now, and we don't need any future ones. We don't need our Hammers caught up in this mess. So you need to call the Atlanta City Solicitor. That's the fancy word they use for the state attorney or the DA. I don't know why Atlanta has such a fancy name for it, but call them at 404-658-6618, and you could hit extension 5 to demand that his name is Rains Carter. To demand that he drop these charges that our hammers are facing. All right, because our hammers were arrested literally for feeding the homeless, reading the Bible with the homeless, making sure that the homeless were clothed and housed and fed. Who gets arrested for that except revolutionaries, right? And so make sure that you're calling the office. Yeah, you can leave them. You can leave messages if they are not there. You can leave voicemails. So make sure you call them right now. Okay. And then what's our reading next week?
We're reading chapters 9 through 13. I'm back, CAC. Make sure you're keeping up with the readings. We want to see your read that backs next week. Like we said, it's really simple to read. It's pretty quick. It's a book of lists. So make sure you're keeping up with the reading, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, the Art of War is really short, y'all. So this is actually the last section. This is the last section. So let's get into it deep, deep, deep. All right, let's get deep. Ooh, I just went full circle. Let's get deep into it. And really go over these. So make sure you come with your read that backs and drop them. Drop them, get them ready, and then you can just copy and paste them. All right. But yeah, we'll be reading 9 to 13 next week. And so, yeah, make sure you're donating to Cash App, blackhammer.org. But in the meantime, we will see you next week.
Yeah.
And just in case you get a heads up about the time and day, you'll get a heads up about the time and day for the book chat, just in case there is a shift in the scheduling. There might be, so just keep an eye out for that. All right, because we want to like we're water.
Mm-hmm.
We're water. We adapt and make shifts and changes for whatever we got to do.
Yep.
So just stay tuned for that update, okay? And otherwise, we'll see you next time. All right, land back,
Land back.
land back.